I'd like to ask you, the State Department, about a few specific foreign policy topics to get an understanding of the administration's position. First, in the Middle East, we saw a brutal reminder of the challenges that Israel faces in its search for peace today when a terrorist killed 3 Israelis and seriously wounded others near Jerusalem. Meanwhile, in Gaza, Hamas continues to hold the bodies of slain IDF soldiers and Israeli civilians as bargaining chips. Earlier this month, I met with the parents of Lieutenant Hadar Golden, who was killed by Hamas terrorists using an underground terror tunnel during a ceasefire in 2014. I've also met with the family of Sergeant Aron Shaul, who was also killed by Hamas in 2014. Hamas's refusal to return the bodies of these soldiers to their families for burial is an obvious violation of international law and basic human values. So to where we are today. Jason Greenblatt is currently in Israel continuing the administration's push towards peace, but for many of us, we're still in the dark about what that looks like. Mr. Greenblatt said last week that it is no secret our approach to these discussions departs from some of the usual orthodoxy. For after years of well-meaning attempts to negotiate an end to the conflict, we have all learned some valuable lessons. So what I'd ask you, Deputy Secretary Sullivan, is what are those lessons that have been learned? What are the unorthodox approaches that you're pursuing? And is it this administration's intention to present its own peace plan?
Oh, thank you, Congressman. Yes, as you know, the White House, Jason Greenblatt, the President's special representative, the senior advisor to the President, Jared Kushner, have been very deeply involved in negotiations between this administration and the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority. The President met with Prime Minister Netanyahu with the leadership of the Palestinian Authority last week. The President himself is personally committed to this process, as other presidents have been. I think the commitment of this administration is clear to the peace process. I would have to defer to Mr. Greenblatt on what he specifically meant with those comments. I would say that Secretary Tillerson, though, has been involved as well. He was with President Trump when the President visited Israel in June.
All of which we're aware of. Can you tell us whether it's the President's intention, the administration's intention to present its own peace plan?
I would have to defer to the White House on that, sir.
Next, moving on to Iran, the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs said in July that it appears Iran is in compliance with the rules that were laid out in the JCPOA. Now, there are very real flaws in the JCPOA, including the problematic sunset provisions. However, in order to lead an international effort against Iran's ongoing support for terrorism, their support of the Hezbollah militias in Syria, the development of their missile program, all of which are outside the terms of the JCPOA, we're going to need the support of the international community and our allies and partners in Europe. Wouldn't a decision not to certify compliance because of factors that are outside the JCPOA risk isolating us from our allies and making the job of combating Iran's malign activities in the region even more difficult?
Well, the Secretary has said as late as last week that Iran is in technical compliance with the JCPOA. He said as well, however, that Iran is in violation of the spirit of the JCPOA for all the malign activities that you've just described. We've been in close consultation with our allies to address both those malign activities and the flaws in the JCPOA, including the sunset provision. So the President will have a decision in October on whether to certify or not, but our work on Iran's malign activities and trying to improve the terms of the JCPOA will continue.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, just if I may, my last question, as you know, Deputy Secretary Sullivan, Bob Levinson's now been held by Iran for more than 10 years. The Levinsons were told that the UN General Assembly would be used as an opportunity to push forward Bob's case. Are you seeing any progress, and can you commit to us here that bringing Bob and the other Americans being unjustly and cruelly held by Iran will remain a priority for this administration?
The Levinson case is a priority for this administration, as are all the other American hostages held worldwide. Just as a note, I have met and spoken with the Levinson family on multiple occasions. I have a picture on my desk of Bob Levinson, who reminds me every day that he's our longest-serving longest held hostage in Iran. And I have personal family experience with Americans being held hostage in Iran. This administration has no higher priority than bringing home all of those Americans, including Mr. Levinson. You have my word on that.
And I'm profoundly grateful for that. Thank you.